On the list of difficulties I find in moving ideas from concept to implementation is that the people who are most deeply engaged in the research and development process have too little access to the users. There's a software development style called Agile that basically, to grossly oversimplify and embarrass myself in front of my software development colleagues, puts the developer next to the user. There's not enough of that going on. Another aspect of that is that the developers do not have the qualifications that would give them a valid understanding of what the users are having to go through and the constraints facing users in the field. They don't necessarily, for example, know the incident command system. They have not gone through firefighter training. They have not tried to work with law enforcement in the field to watch the interaction with the public and how well they're constrained. There are all kinds of issues having to do with understanding the user that, particularly in disaster response, are not adequately addressed by developers. There are those who are working to bridge that, but it's a long haul. Another aspect of the problem of moving from concept to implementation is the recognition that response plans for agencies that are chartered to do the business in the field, to actually go out into the hurricane, go out into the earthquake, go out in the landslide, those response plans have been honed over a long period of time, and everybody on that team has been trained in that response plan. If the concept, the idea, doesn't fit in an existing response plan, it's going to be extremely difficult to introduce it unless you begin working with the organization that owns that response plan early and often. And that, by and large, is not very well done yet. And as a consequence, developers don't understand the context of everything else going on, and how much training has to be done before anything they're likely to develop can join someone in the real world. One of the difficulties we've seen with policymakers is that they have not yet had an opportunity to adapt to the exponential speed of change. The idea that, for example, in the conference that we're attending now, we looked once at 20-year horizons for what we needed to have as our goal, thinking that is foresight. Foresight and predictive modeling needs to be on a much shorter time frame now. Most political structures aren't well designed for that. So it would be good to have an intermediate stage. So yes, policy and legislation need to gradually adapt to an understanding of how rapid expectations are changing, because that's really what we're talking about. The technology is the implementation of social desire. The social desires are being met by technologists at a more and more rapid rate. If the expectations in the public, particularly in disaster response, are such that policy and legislation have not been able to keep track, and we're hearing a lot of that today in the conference, you're going to wind up with a dissatisfied population and a lot of bad press, a lot of ineffectiveness, and a lot of resistance and mockery, frankly, on the part of the public because policy and legislation have not kept up. There probably needs to be a bridge somewhere that's permanently established, and that is the kind of thing the Wilson Center can do, National Academy of Sciences can do, National Science Foundation can do, to help people understand. And by the way, the developers themselves, whether in Silicon Valley, Route 128, or any of the others around the world, somewhere where the rapidity of the change and the popular expectation can be made apparent to those who are trying to make reasonable rules, regulations, without jerking the system around unnecessarily. But still, we're in exponential change, and that needs to be recognized at the policy level.